This is Back Roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. Today is edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We are bringing you plastic for farming sources and information sponsored by Agri. This is the Markets Club podcast on a Monday afternoon. We are talking with our friend Chip In from Blue Reef Agri Markets in Morton, Illinois, at the home of Potters. We were talking about the fundamentals and the tariffs, such more. Here's Chip. I'm here with Chip In from Blue Reef Agri Markets. Well, at the grains markets has been a lot of uncertainty with ag trade for right now, and then cattle is up and down for right now with the stocks markets. This is Chip. He is going to be talking about it. How are things in the fundamentals on the grains?
Caesar, I messed up there at the end. I didn't catch the very end of that. I apologize.
Well, how is the fundamental on the grains?
Yeah, Caesar, right now it's a little bit of a mixed bag. You've got some areas of the Corn Belt that are rapidly planting, in some cases even almost done planting, particularly to the north and west, and then south and east. You've got areas that have been flooded or have too much rain and have very little done. Underlying all that, the demand for corn still is very, very strong from an export and ethanol and feed usage standpoint. So kind of a mixed bag in here, but overall the fundamentals appear fairly good, especially in corn from a demand perspective. On beans, the demand is staying fairly good. We're picking up a little incidental demand that we might normally not, because China has been such a huge buyer of Brazilian beans during their harvest. Obviously, we have this tariff and trade situation going on with China currently, and they've been buying exclusively Brazil beans. And the fundamentals in wheat are a mixed bag as well. There's a little bit of rain in the forecast for areas of Kansas, Oklahoma. They really need rain. They're very dry. Also, portions of the Black Sea wheat growing areas have been a little bit dry as well. And so right now, things are a little bit of a mixed bag from a weather perspective, but pretty good demand underlying everything right now, especially the corn market.
How about the technical buying in the beans, Chip?
Yeah, the bean market has been unusually strong. It's been a little bit of a surprise to me how strong our beans have been right through the middle of a record South American bean harvest. Some of that turns out to be that China has been such a massive buyer of beans out of Brazil. It's firmed their basis up, and that means that we have picked up a little bit of business, especially with the dollar dropping against some of these other countries that normally probably would have bought Brazil beans. So the bean market has run right into resistance at the 200-day moving average. That's happened two or three occasions now. So far, the 200-day moving average has stopped us to the top side. It did again here, recently. We saw a lower close today in the bean market. The corn market looks pretty good. The funds have a long position built up in corn. They appear that they want to buy every break. And so with the entire growing season ahead of us, it looks like the corn market may be having the best fundamental and technical footing right now. The wheat market has been technically a little bit weaker and just can't seem to get up and get across any of the major moving averages right now. And it's not making lower lows. So we're kind of stuck in a sideways range in here, but probably of any market, the wheat market maybe still is the weakest technically right now.
Of course, we will see for the balance sheet on May 12th.
Yeah, that's going to be an important report. The May crop report gives us our first new crop 2025 supply and demand balance sheet. Probably the most important thing there is going to be where they peg uh, total bean demand at with this ongoing tariff situation and the fact that we really haven't sold many beans to China. They're coming out of Brazil. That's not atypical, though. I mean, that normally happens, in the middle of the Brazilian growing season. And then towards fall and winter, we pick back up and start making more regular sales to China. So it'll be interesting to see what they do on May 12th.
Chip, what is your position on the corn acreage for 95 million acres and the planting intention report from Monday, March 31st, like the balance sheet is trying to tell us?
Yeah, I guess I'm maybe in the minority right now. I think that was the biggest acreage number that we'll see simply because it's gotten so wet in the south and east, especially down in the Delta area. They should be getting ready to finish up planting down there, and there's pockets that, just don't really have much of a start yet. And so I think that we've seen the highest corn acreage number on the March acreage report. However, there is an argument that people may plant a few more corn acres, especially given the fact that in President Trump's first term, the tariff payments that we received were a little heavier weighted monetarily to corn acreage, and so that could maybe force some corn acres, kind of farming for the tariff payment, so to speak. But Mother Nature will be the ultimate decider of that. If it stays wet, past maybe the 8th, 10th of May, in the southern tier of Corn Belt area, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, that area, I think you'll pare back corn acreage there. So probably the end result is gonna be made by Mother Nature rather than anything.
How about the beans acreage in the Delta into Louisiana?
Yeah, same thing there. If you do pare back some corn acres there, it could maybe switch to beans or maybe back to cotton. Cotton's usually the last crop they plant there. And so again, I think Mother Nature and the rainfall over the next 2-3 weeks here is going to determine, exactly what that final mix of corn bean acreage is across the Corn Belt and the Delta.
How concerned about the beans acreage in the Midwest?
Yeah, again, it depends on where you're at, right? If you've had a good run, there's areas that have, all their beans planted. There's areas kind of Western Illinois into Iowa, parts of Iowa that are, have the majority of corn and beans planted. So, again, I think it depends on where you're at and, whether you've had an open window to plant or whether you've been fighting rain. And then here recently, crossed a big swath of Illinois, Indiana, we've had some recent rain here that's going to at least slow us down for a couple days, at least, depending on where you're at. And then it is supposed to warm up nicely into the end of the week here. So again, we debate every year this acreage deal, but rainfall and Mother Nature always have the final say in that.
How is the weather forecast for next few weeks in central Illinois, Chip?
Yeah, again, we had some rain move through here, fairly decent amounts. We definitely can use that rain. It's maybe not coming at the exact right time. There has been some planting progress made. We're probably out for, I would say, just here locally, at least 2 days. If we get some sunshine and near 80 towards the end of the week, maybe by late week this weekend, we'll get planters rolling again. Much past this week, I don't put a lot of stock in these longer range forecasts. Longer range meaning a couple of weeks. I think the one thing that stands out though is last week we got an update on like June, July, August weather from NOAA, and they're still predicting, especially for the Western Corn Belt, below normal precip, above normal temps for that summer time frame. So I think that's maybe more of a worry than the very short run weather in here. These rules out.
What do you recommend for these volatility in the cattle markets with the stocks markets?
Yeah, we're seeing the stock market get just pummeled again today. And it dragged the cattle market off the highs. So, on the one hand, you got pretty tight numbers still on cattle. Maybe just some slight indications that we're starting to maybe build the cattle herd just a little bit. But there's just massive amount of equity at risk in here, massive swings from low to high, massive uncertainty in the financial markets. I think you just have to stay hedged one way or the other, whether that's just an outright put, maybe that's LRP insurance. In some way, shape, or form, you have to have some sort of downside protection out there. If and when, it's probably not if, it is when the funds decide that they are done being long cattle, this thing, could take on a much different tone down the road when the funds liquidate and the cash market peaks. Doesn't look maybe like it has yet, but there's always that risk from the outside market. So I think you have to stay hedged.
What is your position on the stock markets for right now?
Yeah, I'm certainly not a stock guy, other than the standpoint of how it affects, our ag markets, the grain markets and livestock markets. And certainly that casts a little bit of a shadow, especially on days like this where you have, such a big down day going in the stock market. As we talk, the stock market's still open here. It's down about 1,150 points in the Dow. The S&P's down 160 full points. Those are big, big moves. And so this tariff situation, the uncertainty with the Federal Reserve and interest rates, just casts a big shadow on all the financial markets. And in my opinion, that's one thing that kind of reversed the grain markets from higher today, was all this selling in the equities markets, and interest rates also, rising quite a bit today. So that certainly was a headwind against the grain and livestock markets today.
What is your final thoughts on the balance sheet on May 12th?
Yeah, I think, again, the most important part of that's going to be where the USDA sets the demand bar, especially on beans. Corn demand, a lot of arguments there that corn demand is going to stay strong, but there are some questions on bean demand. So whatever they say is going to be what the market starts with. They're going to have a trend line yield, and they're going to have the acreage number that they put in from March, and then the biggest missing piece of that is what they do with demand. And so that's where the market will start to kind of factor in. Here's what carryout could look like. Are we getting planted on time? What's summer weather going to be like? And, work backwards or higher or lower from that May ending stocks number. And that's what will drive price swings through summer. So I think the demand part of that is going to be the most important piece of that May 12th crop report. And that'll be here before you know it. I mean, it's we're less than, I guess, about 3 weeks away, but it'll be here quickly.
Thanks, Chip.
You bet. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the opportunity, and sorry about the technical difficulties here. I need to get a new headset.
We've been having a conversation with Thanks to Chip In from Blue Reef Agri Markets. This has been the Markets Club podcast. I'm Cesar Delgado. You have a good day.